This is a screencast recap of a presentation by Bonnie Stewart and Dave Cormier. Life in the open. When we look to the internet and look at whether or not we should get involved in this whole social sharing open stuff, the first thing that people tend to talk about is how much sharing is going on. People are talking about what they had for breakfast and really talking too much information about their lives. And what it comes down to is this belief that people are forgetting how to communicate. Everybody's got this story of those 4 kids sitting at the coffee shop table, each of them typing into their phone and not actually communicating with each other. That the idea that there's no real communication going on, that these kids are digital natives and they have some set of skills that are completely foreign and different and maybe lesser than the ones from the generation before them. Nicholas Carr tells us in The Atlantic that Google is making us stupid, that people are losing the ability to think deeply and they're thinking shallowly and not really getting into the more profound areas of knowledge. The question that we'd like to posit is that maybe we're being stupid about social media. There's no doubt that social media is becoming an inherent part of people's lives. It's becoming part of our social. Not so much that it's technology or not technology, but if you go and make plans for dinner, whether it happens on Facebook or it happens by telephone or it happens face to face, people aren't really noticing the difference anymore. It's becoming embedded in real life. So the question then becomes, as the social becomes part of our daily lives, what responsibility does academia have towards making that space a place of value, towards taking the stupid out of it, or at least combating the stupid? And there are lots of tools in the tool chest that we have to draw from. We've got the academic paper in that sense of, thinking deeply and the long thought that goes together with an academic article. But there are a lot of other tools in that tool chest too. You've got Socrates' dialectic. You've got Montaigne's essay. You've got all these other sort of great traditions that bring the social a little bit more to the forefront, but still profoundness of thought and rigor are still there inside of those. So let's assume that you've heard that and you're thinking about it and you're thinking, yeah, but there's all this technology out there. How do I deal with that stuff? I think the first answer I have is that the technology is not really what's important here. If I were going to send you to a dinner party and I say, well, here's the 6 spoons and there's a salad fork and here's a fork, and I prepare you by telling you how to do each one of these things, you're really no more prepared to walk in the room and be part of that dinner party. And I'd say that any of these social spaces are exactly the same way. The technology stuff and being proficient with it, not nearly as important as having the literacies that you need to be social, to be effective, to be profound, and to be rigorous. Those are the real tools that you need, and those are the ones that people already have. And those digital natives we were talking about earlier, those are the ones that they need to learn. So if you do think about doing this, the argument that we make is there's 2 words that you really want to think about, 2 key literacies that you're going to want to develop right at the beginning. And one of them is a familiar one, connectedness. The other one, maybe a little bit less familiar, openness. It's really that simple, just those 2 things. Learning is connected. Everything that we've done in knowledge is about connecting the bits and pieces of people's work, about pulling those things together. When we look at an academic paper, really what we're looking at is this combination of links between work that different people have done. If you take any decent academic article, all those links at the bottom are exactly the same as the kinds of hyperlinks that we're using on the internet. It's all connectivity. It's all the pieces being drawn together. And whereas 50 years ago, it may take you, days and days and 50 books piled on a desk to pull all those links together. Now we have the advantage of being able to pull those all together at speed. But it's still connections, and it's still connections between people. Behind every one of those citations is somebody and somebody's work. And the social space online is very much the same way. And 3 things to keep in mind if you're actually thinking about doing this. 1, who do you want to do it with? Who are the people that you already know that you'd want to connect with online? Most people start in social spaces talking to people that they already know. So maybe they're professionals, maybe they're hobbyists that you know that you're interested in, but get a sense of who you want to start connecting with. Ask questions, tell stories, be interested, engage with the people who are out there. Like any other social space, the more you communicate with people, the more open you are, the easier it's going to be to make connections. And the last thing is to remember that the digital is reputational. Take the time to think about what message you're trying to put out and how you want to create your social space, how you want to talk about the work you're doing so that people know and understand who you are, because you're not going to have the advantage all the time of them having met you face to face. So that digital reputation can be key. The other side of that is openness. It's fine to be connected, but if you don't have connections to people, or if you have connections to just a few people, you can't really leverage the real power of the social space. One of the advantages with openness, if you're actually open about the work that you do, is crazy things can happen. The story that we tell people all the time is about Michael Wesch at Kansas State. He was working with his students. They put together this video to talk about how the internet worked, and they kept posting it to YouTube in different revisions. First, some people watched it, and then hundreds, and then thousands, and then millions. It's been really good for his career. It's not the sort of thing that's going to happen to everybody, but those little moments of emergence are things that happen to a lot of people. At the New Media Consortium, Alan Levine has put together this wonderful project called Amazing Stories of Openness, where people talk about the really cool things that have happened to them by sharing their work, by being open about their work, and how those things have come back to help them out professionally, to help them out personally, and open new doors for them. People have found jobs, they've gotten work, they've gotten contracts, they've made new friends. And that's really, and this is the key point, a professional tool and a lot of great professional advantages for them. So for me, openness is a practice. My syllabuses get posted online to my blog. My students work in the open when I can, and I share the research that I do. So every academic paper I've ever written, you'll see the genesis of it somewhere in a blog post. And that has led to any number of connections that I was able to form through people finding my stuff au hasard and then having that come back to me. So that's really the model that we're proposing. Openness as emergent, connectedness as something that you cultivate. So you're open with your work, you share it, just like a conference. When you go out, you present a paper, you're open about your work, 2 or 3 people come up at the end, that you pass business cards back and forth, and you try to stay in contact. You try to cultivate the connectedness between each other. So be open, and then you can make those connections. Thanks.